Imagine waking up one day to discover your entire life has been a lie, and you're not who you thought you were. What if the blood running through your veins is royal, not common? This is the unbelievable story of an impoverished orphan whose world shatters with a revelation that will shock you to your core. Deborah woke up gasping, her heart racing. In her dream, fire had surrounded a golden palace, and someone was calling her name, not Deborah, but something softer, older. Then the dream faded, leaving her staring at the cracked ceiling of the orphanage. Rain tapped against the window like quiet knocks. The other girls were still asleep, curled under thin blankets. Deborah sat up and rubbed her neck. The small birthmark behind her ear burned again, a tiny shape like a crown. She hated that mark. The other kids teased her for it. "Hey, princess," they'd laugh. "Go clean the dishes." But sometimes late at night, she wondered why she had dreams that felt like memories. She could smell roses she'd never seen, hear songs in languages she didn't know, feel love from faces she couldn't name. At breakfast, she sat alone. The food was cold, the milk thin and watery. The caretaker, Mrs. Lark, was kind but tired. "Eat up, Deborah," she said softly. "We've got chores today." Outside, gray clouds rolled over the small town. Deborah swept the porch, trying not to think about her dream, but she couldn't shake the voice that called to her. "Find me." That night, a thunderstorm hit. The power flickered out, and the wind howled through the halls. Deborah was about to climb into bed when she heard a car outside, unusual for a place so forgotten. Then came a knock at the door. Mrs. Lark answered, holding a candle. A tall man stood there, soaked in rain, holding a brown package. "This is for Deborah Williams," he said. His voice was calm but strange, like he knew her. Mrs. Lark frowned. "We don't get mail for the children. Tonight you do." He handed it over and walked away before she could ask more. Deborah's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was an old silver pendant shaped like a teardrop and a note written in gold ink. It read, "It's time you came home." The moment her fingers touched the pendant, it glowed softly, lighting up her face. And in that golden light, she saw a woman's face, gentle, smiling, whispering one word that made Deborah freeze. "Daughter." Morning came with silence. The storm had passed, but the air still smelled like thunder. Deborah sat on her bed, holding the silver pendant. It no longer glowed, yet she could still feel a soft warmth in her palm, like it was alive. She turned the note over again and again. "It's time you came home." Home? She had never had one. A sharp honk startled her. Through the window, she saw a sleek black car parked outside the orphanage. It looked out of place, too clean for this old neighborhood. A tall man stepped out, dressed in a dark coat and hat. He moved with calm confidence, his eyes searching the building until they landed right on her window. For a moment, Deborah froze. Then he smiled, not a big smile, just a knowing one. Mrs. Lark called from downstairs. "Deborah, someone's here for you." Her heart raced as she walked down the old staircase. The man stood near the door, holding his hat in his hands. "Good morning," he said kindly. "My name is Mr. Harris. I believe this belongs to you." He held up a small photo. Deborah took it and her breath caught. It was her as a baby, wrapped in a golden blanket, sitting on the lap of a woman wearing a royal crown. The same face she had seen in the glowing light. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "From the truth," he said softly. "And it's time you know yours." Mrs. Lark looked confused. "Sir, what is this about?" Mr. Harris turned to her. "It's about who she really is." Then back to Deborah. "You're not just another orphan, Miss Williams. Your family has been searching for you for years." Deborah shook her head. "That's not possible, isn't it?" He glanced at her pendant. "That belonged to your mother." Before she could reply, a loud crack sounded from outside, not thunder this time. Smoke rose from the far side of the yard. Someone screamed, "Fire!" Mrs. Lark rushed out, shouting for help. Mr. Harris grabbed Deborah's hand. "We have to go. Now." As they ran toward the car, Deborah looked back. Flames were spreading fast across the orphanage roof. Her home was burning, and she had no idea why. The road stretched for miles, dark and wet from rain. Deborah sat in the back seat, staring out the window as the orphanage disappeared behind them. Smoke curled into the cloudy sky like a memory fading away. Her hands gripped the pendant tightly. Why did that happen? she asked. Who would burn down an orphanage? Mr. Harris kept his eyes on the road. It wasn't random. They were looking for you. Deborah blinked. Me? I don't even know who I am. He glanced at her through the mirror. That's exactly why they want you to stay in the dark. Hours passed before the car turned off the highway and followed a narrow path through the woods. At the end stood an old mansion, tall, quiet, and covered in vines. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. This place is safe, Mr. Harris said, opening the door for her. It belonged to your mother's family. Inside, dust danced in the light. On the walls hung portraits of men and women dressed in fine clothes, some wearing small crowns. One portrait made Deborah stop. The woman looked exactly like her, except older. Your mother, Mr. Harris said gently, Princess Ilara of Lidovia. Deborah's chest tightened. Princess? She repeated, almost laughing. That's impossible. He smiled sadly. Your mother was the last heir to a royal family. Years ago, her kingdom was torn apart by people who wanted power. She fled, hoping to protect you, but she disappeared before she could tell you the truth. Deborah sat down slowly. You mean, Yes, Mr. Harris said. You are her only child, the last of the royal bloodline. Her head spun. She looked again at the woman in the portrait, her eyes kind yet strong. Why didn't she come for me? Mr. Harris sighed. Because the same people who took her home away are still searching. They would have hurt you both that night. Deborah couldn't sleep. The wind outside whispered through the trees, carrying echoes of her mother's voice. When she touched the pendant again, it glowed, showing a symbol she hadn't noticed before, a lion holding a sword. And then she saw the same symbol engraved on Mr. Harris's ring. Her heart stopped. What was he hiding from her? The firelight from the old mansion's fireplace flickered across the room, painting shadows on the walls. Deborah sat in silence, staring at Mr. Harris's ring, the one marked with the lion and sword. Her heart pounded. Why do you have that symbol? She asked quietly. Mr. Harris looked up from his chair, his face unreadable. You've seen it before. It appeared on my pendant, she said, gripping it. What does it mean? He hesitated, then sighed. It was the royal family's crest. Your family's? I wore it once, for the wrong reasons. Deborah's voice trembled. The wrong reasons? I wasn't always a good man, he admitted. Years ago, I worked for people who wanted to find your mother, not to protect her, but to take what she carried. When I realized what they planned, it was too late. I couldn't save her, so I swore I'd save you. Deborah's eyes filled with confusion and anger. So you lied to me? I kept you alive, he said softly, and I'll keep doing it until my last breath. Before she could answer, the sound of engines echoed from outside. Bright light swept across the windows. Mr. Harris's face turned pale. They've found us, he said. Run. Deborah followed him through the dark hallway as doors burst open and strangers rushed in. Mr. Harris pushed her toward a back door. Go! Don't stop! A loud noise cut through the air. Deborah turned. Mr. Harris had fallen. No! She cried, kneeling beside him. He pressed a small key into her hand. Find the truth. Beneath the church, he whispered weakly. Your mother left something there. Something only you can unlock. Tears blurred Deborah's vision as he smiled faintly. I'm sorry, princess, he said, his voice fading. When the noise outside grew louder, Deborah ran into the forest, clutching the key and the glowing pendant. Hours later, she reached an old chapel covered in vines. She followed the echo of her mother's voice down into a hidden passage beneath the floor. There, in a small stone chamber, she found a sealed letter resting beside a faded portrait of her mother. Her hands shook as she opened it and froze at the first line. If you are reading this, my daughter, then I am still alive. Deborah couldn't breathe. The words on the letter blurred through her tears. I am still alive. Her mother's handwriting was soft and curved, each word filled with love and longing. The letter told a story: how she had escaped the night the palace fell, how she had hidden in America under a new name, and how she had searched for Deborah every day since. At the bottom were 5 words that made Deborah's heart ache. I never stopped loving you. Clutching the pendant and the key, Deborah followed the map sketched on the back of the letter. It led her through small towns and long roads until, one quiet evening, she found a diner by the highway. The sign flickered. Ilara's home cooking. Inside, the smell of pie and coffee filled the air. Behind the counter stood a woman with gentle eyes and hair the same soft brown as Deborah's. She turned and for a moment, time stopped. "Mom," Deborah whispered. The woman froze, her eyes widening. The pendant glowed between them, its light soft and golden. Tears filled her eyes as she came closer. "My Deborah." They fell into each other's arms, the world around them fading. Years of silence, loss, and distance melted into one long, shaking hug. But outside, two dark cars pulled up. Men stepped out, scanning the diner. The same danger had found them again. Her mother grabbed Deborah's hand. "Go through the back door no," Deborah said, standing tall. For the first time, she wasn't afraid. "It ends tonight." She held the pendant high. Its light burst brighter than ever, filling the diner like sunrise. The men shielded their eyes, stumbling back. The glow spread, and suddenly they were gone, only the quiet wind remained. Her mother looked at her in awe. "You carry the light of our family," she whispered. Deborah smiled through tears. "No, Mom, I carry your love." Later, as the night settled and peace finally returned, Deborah stood outside the diner, watching the stars. "They called me an orphan," she said softly, "but I was never lost, only forgotten." And with that, the forgotten princess found her place not in a palace, but in a mother's arms, where she truly belonged.